Yes, good morning. You can hear me okay? Thanks very much for inviting me. I normally come here, I've been here several times, and it's usually about forensic care, secure care, the high end of mental health. This is much better to talk about where we really need to be putting our resources, our investment and our commitment and energy into children and young people, for obvious reasons. So I'm really pleased to be here, and thank you, Bob Fletcher, for inviting me. And it seems like a really good attendance. I'm sure you'll have a fantastic conference. So yes, I'll set the national scene. The NHS Confederation, those of you in the NHS, in the clinical commissioning groups, will know it's been around for many, many years. It's a networked organisation, consists of a number of networks. One of them is the Mental Health Network, of which I'm the Chief Executive. And we represent all of the Chief Executives of the Mental Health Trust across the country. About 96% membership. We've also expanded in the last few years, which is really important, third sector organisations that provide NHS care via NHS money, and also independent organisations that do the same, providing NHS care through NHS money. St Andrews, of course, being a charity, is a member. Now, it's representing £8 billion worth of business. It's really, really important. We work very closely with social care, the organisations closest to us in social care. I came from, this is only week 2, so I'm quite pleased I was able to describe what the NHS Confederation is. Week 2 in my job, I came from the Sainsbury's Centre for Mental Health, more latterly, the Centre for Mental Health, think tank research organisation, of which children and young people has been a programme for about the last 8 years, and we focused very heavily around this particular area. We have a woman called Lorraine Khan, who's a probation officer by background, and a researcher, and she's an expert in the field. And so a lot of the information I'll be talking about a little later will be the work that she has done with our health economist. So to set the scene, you really need to start off with 2 weeks ago, and Councillor Matthew made reference to the fact that it's diminishing resources, it's really challenging for social care. At the moment, and the autumn statement 2 weeks ago didn't even mention social care and just mentioned in passing health. That's unforgivable. Stephen Dorrell, who's our chair for the NHS Confederation, was on the Andrew Marr show a couple of weeks ago. If you Google Andrew Marr, Stephen Dorrell, it's really good. It was a really, he's a health guy. He was a health secretary many years ago. It was a really good description and passionate plea that don't forget social care. Social care needs some investment now, because all the good health plans we've got, all the good plans that you've got here, it's going to be difficult to implement if you keep diminishing and keep putting pressure on social care resources. But there is some really good news. The picture for mental health nationally, it has to be positive. I've been in it for 40 years. The biggest progress we made was about sort of 15, 20 years ago when we had the National Service Framework for Mental Health. That was a multi-million-pound investment. You don't really get anywhere unless you back up, I think, some plans with financial resources. So the National Service Framework was very good. Then I think we kept our eye off the ball with mental health. There were other priorities. And we slipped back. And we find ourselves in this position now. Now, a couple of years ago, we've started again investing in mental health. Liaison on diversion, children and young people, the £1.25 billion put into children and young people 2 years ago. That will cumulatively start to get to that figure of £1.25 million repeatedly in a few years' time. I mean, there's never a day that goes by without a positive story about mental health in the media. Now, I've never known that, so that's got to be good. Politicians seem to be committed to the cause. I think we've made the case now that mental health, whatever plans you might have, whatever plans local clinical commissioning groups and county councils will have here, you can't do it without focus and without some plans, decent plans on mental health, and give it some attention. So there's a 5-year forward view. So there was a mental health task force, wasn't there, about a year ago, chaired by Paul Farmer from the third sector, Chief Executive of Mind. That was quite crucial. It was independent. And they suggested a number of improvements that need to be made, which is backed up by some investment over the next few years. And there is an implementation group for that. It meets regularly. We're part of that. And we'll make sure it works. There's a national new monitoring programme that the clinical commissioning groups here will be very familiar with. Out of the 6 areas that have been monitored very comprehensively, there's one on mental health, one on dementia, and one on learning disabilities. And I think that goes to show the importance and focus now at national level that's been put around the areas of mental health and other services that are closely linked with mental health, such as learning disabilities. So just to sort of complete this particular part of what I wanted to say, politics is important. Again, Councillor Matthews started the day for us. Politics, I think we have to manage the politics at national level for mental health to get a good part of the investment. And we made some real good progress a couple of years ago when we had Norman Lamb, who was the health minister. I mean, he came here. You'll probably know Norman Lamb, and Nick Clegg. The two of them really promoted the importance of mental health. And they won it. They won the case, and there was some investment put into it, and mental health seems to be now at a fairly high level. It's interesting now in current government, the Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, he's retained the profile for mental health. Now, you could argue that the problem with that is you're not going to see him a lot because he's the Health Secretary, and will he really give the attention and the energy into mental health? Well, I met him a couple of times, and we quizzed him, and we questioned, we probed him, and he is in charge of mental health. He'll keep the portfolio for it, and I think there's some optimism there. I really do. Having said that, there's been report after report, 5 of them recently, that said the money invested, £1.25 billion in child mental health services, is not getting through to the sharp end. So you're not seeing it. Well, so there's a problem. And only last week, the Royal College of Psychiatry reported, didn't they? They looked at all of the CCG investments in child and adolescent mental health care, and the range was just staggering. This is spend per head of child in the CCG area, ranged from £2, 1 penny, to £135, and the £135 spend is the CCG not too far from here, Birmingham South. Now, this information is publicly available. It's good out there, but it's, again, disappointing reading. You know, we're not getting enough equal investment across the country. There were 10 CCGs that were spending less than £10 per head. So we might have won the case intelligently about the need for mental health, but practically we've still got somewhere to go. There's just a couple of things that's worth mentioning to you, that you have probably seen the Royal Foundation, the 3 royals, the 3 young royals, Kate, William and Harry, who set together the Royal Foundation. This is new, and they will be looking at areas that are close to their heart and areas that they feel passionate about trying to resolve in this country. And the first one that they've identified is children's mental health. And they've come together with 6 charities that provide mental health services for children, and it's called Heads Together. You'll have seen some of the media coverage on that. This is really important. I mean, I was part of the Centre for Mental Health, part of a group of charities that have been trying to lobby and campaign for decent care and investment for children and mental health. Well, yes, we did okay, but since Harry, William, Kate came along, that's taken the show. And that's really important. They're not going to let this go. And of course, they will have tremendous influence at national level and at political level to make sure that this works. So that the investment arguments, they will start to get their teeth into, and they will do it their own way, their own discreet, subtle way. But I think we're going to see some difference. There's plenty of third sector organisations, charities. I want to name one, which is not the one I worked for. It's Place to Be. They're a schools-based charity. Their president is Kate, and they run. They're quite affluent. They're very good at fundraising, and they run psychologically based interventions in schools, anti-bullying, anti-anger management. They provide psychologists within schools and target certain children that need to be looked at, and they train the teachers, they train the assistants. It's absolutely brilliant. Of course, it only covers about 5-10% of the country, But it's worth looking at, and they're part of the Royal Foundation Heads Together, place to be. It's worth just having a look at what they do. There are plenty of other charities that do pretty good work, but I'm thinking, we know all the evidence is, start at schools, obviously parents and families, but start at schools. My friends and family know that I've been in mental health, know that I'm particularly interested in child and adolescent mental health services. And, you know, people come to you, don't they? And they say, look, I've got a problem. We have a very close family friends at home who came to us a little while ago, came to my wife. The mother of a 14-year-old daughter came to my wife and said, you know, we're really pulling our hair out. The girl is at school. She's 14. She's fighting at school. She's playing truant. She's stealing, she's getting into all sorts of trouble, she's lying awake at night, she won't sleep, she's very disruptive within the family, and they went to the GP, and the GP wasn't sure really what to do. The GP referred them to some statutory mental health services, which the referral took weeks and then months, by which time things got a lot worse at home. Grandparents started to fall out. Father got very upset about the whole thing, found it so incredibly embarrassing. A friend of mine wouldn't go anywhere near me to talk to me, just ashamed and embarrassed. And the whole stigma was a real problem for them. And that, unfortunately, that case is still going on. The second personal story is a lighter one and a nicer ending. There's a young lad we're very close to, very close to the parents. He's got ADHD. He's in his late 20s now, but ever since he was a young teenager, used substances and alcohol a lot, got involved in all sorts of low-key, low-crime gangs. Lovely family, lovely guy, and in and out of mental health services, very rarely got good care, but sometimes did. And then in and out of the criminal justice system. And at one stage, he was part of a sort of low-key robbery that went horribly wrong and got taken to court. It looked like he was going to his first sentence, to have his first sentence, probably about a year or so. I mean, I felt that would probably be, really, really destructive for the young man. And the courts decided that what they would do is they'd bring in the liaison and diversion team that was new, and that he would have a mental health treatment plan in the community and not go for a custodial sentence. And it really worked. He's having good care now, and his life is getting sort of really near normality. He's got a job, got a girlfriend, and things are going very well. I think if he'd gone down to the custodial sentence route, we wouldn't have had the outcome that we've got now. And the liaison diversion teams, of course, are quite new, and they're getting embedded in across the country, and they have a particular focus for children and young people. There was an argument there that actually, and I know I think I was talking to somebody earlier on, there's lots of arguments, isn't it? When you've got children's services, should you just lump them into the adult services and then to provide one group of services? Well, in the area of liaison and diversion for offenders in the community and in prison, all the research and evidence was design a specialist service for children for really approximately below the age of 18 years. And this has proven to be rather successful. And actually that was invested in by government, and the last bit of investment for liaison and diversion services is going to cover the country, I think, by 2019. So just a couple of major publications can get you hard copies, free to download from the Centre for Mental Health website, and I give Centre for Mental Health the full credit for this. Is their work, not the Confederation. Missed Opportunities was commissioned by the Royal Foundation, and it's a review of the recent evidence into children and young people's mental health service. Now, the start of it is not good reading. It's sort of repeating some of the huge delays and problems with services that you all encounter all the time, and probably a part of it in commissioning it. So 3/4 of parents of children with a mental health problem seek help, but only 1/4 of children receive any support. And this is all current, recent statistics. There are average of 10-year delay between young people displaying first symptoms and getting help. Now, when we came up with this, we thought, oh, hang on a minute, we can't put this into the public. 10 years, we know about months and 3 months and 6 months and a couple of years. But what's this about? Well, this is very complicated, and it involves a lot of issues. So in summary, the factors that relate to this, and again, a lot of you will know this, and this is borne out in the personal stories that I told you about, repeated referrals in and around the system, GPs perhaps not being made aware of the issues, being referred to statutory services which are really, really up to capacity, don't have any availability, or the criteria is not quite right, or whatever it might be. But some of the factors are knowing something is wrong, identifying it, schools and parents identifying at an early stage. It's difficult. Personal stories I told you about, really difficult, went on for weeks and months. What is happening? I know that with my own son, when he discovered cannabis many years ago. What on earth is going on? It wasn't cannabis, it was skunk, the real high strain. It was very, very complex for a young lad, and for parents not knowing, are there any issues here? Anticipating stigma, that's still massive. Time to change, fantastic, brilliant campaign. We've made a huge difference. We monitor time to change every year. Mind and Rethink Mental Illness do. And usually the reports that are coming through now, there's tangible improvements in stigma. It's been great that politicians, a couple of years ago, 5 of them, stood up in the House of Commons and I've got a mental health problem, obsessive compulsive disorder or depression and anxiety, 5. That was really good political leadership. This is okay to say this. Employers need to be more tolerant, etc., etc. So we're getting there, but it's still not right. And the story I told you about at the beginning, the father works in the NHS, just couldn't handle this. Belief change is possible and the treatment works. Well, there's a range of but people sometimes don't believe. CAMS is getting better. Child and adolescent mental health is getting better. It needs to, but there's a confidence issue with child and adolescent mental health service because of its complexity, because of its it'll get over. The capacity will be up to full capacity very quickly with CAMS teams. We all know that. Preferences seeking help. That's a determinant that's very varied. Attractiveness of help, because people don't really understand what good might look like in terms of applying for help. Knowing where to get help is, you'll know this from your own self and from, I'm lucky, I know probably how the system works, which is why I was really keen for the story I told you about at the beginning, for the father and me or the parents. I could probably help how it might work, but people don't know how it works and don't know how to get help. The ability and energy to access timely help, you do see that with parents and schools, that they get a few rejections or don't get to see the right people, specialist services. I can't be bothered, or actually the child gets slightly better with support from parents, whatever it might be. But the thing does change a bit. And in missed opportunities, the report commissioned by the Royal Foundation, we said 2 main things. All of the evidence reviewed for this report points to the importance of supporting families and schools to build firm foundations for children's mental health and of offering effective help for any age at the first sign of difficulty. So it is that the earlier you can intervene, the better. Conduct disorder from the years of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years old, that's the time, isn't it, to intervene with evidence-based interventions for conduct disorder. Really don't leave it. But the argument is if you do leave it, and we do, then still intervene as early as you can at any particular age group. And you'll see, if you're interested in missed opportunities, it takes you through chapter by chapter age groups, 3 to 6 and 6 to the primary school age, the senior school age, and then the transition between child and adult, and all the interventions that are evidence-based and the return on investment of the interventions. The thing, running a research institution for 10 years, I look at this, the conclusion. It's so obvious, yet it takes quite a bit of time and expert people to really be able to say it with confidence. And the other aspect is that the report and the research illustrates the importance of raising awareness of mental health literacy. So that's mental health first aid, mental health awareness training, teaching people about mental health. This is schools and secure homes or residential homes for children, whatever it might be, getting people policed, criminal justice system, getting people aware of mental health issues, how it presents itself, and where you should be able to get help. And they highlight the importance of making effective help more accessible, more proactive, and more responsive. I remember Norman Lamb standing up and saying, the problem with CAM services is who understands tier 1, 2, 3, and 4? And I remember I've been in this system a little while, I think, I'm not sure if I was questioned really about tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4, whether I'd know the answers to that. Plenty of people in the room here that will know the answers to that very well. But it's difficult to market it outside. It's difficult for parent groups and schools to understand the complexities of that. And it can put people off. So the last publication I wanted to mention to you is the Investing in Children's Mental Health. Any commissioners in the room, anybody that's just interested in what interventions, this was brilliant. It was done by Lorraine Kahn, the person I told you about, and our health economist. And they went through about 10 or 11 interventions that work, that have got a good evidence. They only looked at interventions for children and young people with mental health issues that had a strong evidence base. And they only looked at interventions that had a strong evidence for financial return. So if you're going to do it, does it cost any more money? Well, they didn't get included. Does it cost the same or does it save money? Then they were included. And it's useful, I think, that if you're interested in this world and you want to promote the importance of putting interventions and running programs in this area, I think it's a really useful read. And I've just extrapolated a few of the interventions in this report. And this is how it looks in the report, so just taking it out. Summary of interventions for conduct disorder. So conduct disorder in adolescence. And there you've got the age range, aggressive replacement therapy, cost per child, and the benefit cost ratio. So for every pound you put in, you save £22 back. The functional family therapy is also a very cost-effective intervention. Multi-systemic therapy, twice you put £1 in, £2 back. And these, so if you treat young people, then the savings are, you will save on repeated and unwanted health and social care throughout a course of a life. There will be all sorts of savings regarding the family and employment and avoiding the criminal justice system. And a lot of these young people with conduct disorder, if not checked and treated properly, unfortunately, that they have an access into the criminal justice system, which is very expensive and not the sort of thing that we would want to, as a modern society, support, particularly when we know that there are interventions that could prevent this. And the last one is multi-dimensional treatment fostering. Again, a return there. And then finally, a summary of interventions for anxiety disorders amongst children, which is very common. We saw the psychiatric national morbidity come out, didn't we, a couple of months ago, that was disappointing reading for young girls in particular, young girls experiencing more mental health disorders, taking more drugs and alcohol, self-harm, as was mentioned by our politician friend short time ago. So group cognitive behavioural therapy for children, this is the most effective one in terms of the financial return. So group cognitive behavioural therapy for children that can be practiced within schools or within clinical settings. For every pound you spend, 31 back. Group cognitive behavioural therapy via parents, the same return, £1, £10 back. And these are all have got high, strong evidence base from this country, Europe, and the States. And I think that's my time up. I'm really enjoyed that. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm not sure how I meant to ask you at the beginning, how do you want to approach questions and answers? Very happy to take questions and answers. Is that okay? We've got time? So please, anything? So I think you were just first. Yeah. I don't know either. It's in the report, the full, and it's free to download, so please do. And there's a whole description of all of the interventions. It was really interesting, because when I first read this, I thought, again, I'd been, you know, I'd run child and adolescent mental health services, albeit many, many years ago. I've been a psychiatric nurse millions of years ago, and I didn't know some of these interventions, but that's okay. You know, I mean, some of them are pretty recent and pretty modern. But the full description of all of them are in the report. Yeah, there was two. Yeah, so I just got the first bit of that, because I think you haven't got the advantage of a microphone. Consistency across the country?
Yes. Well, you talked about great variation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you got any solutions regarding that?
Yeah, it is very hard, because you know, I've seen attempts at getting some solutions in the past on that, and it not working very well. We're still ending up now 2016 with these sort of, I mean, it's staggering, the Royal College of Psychiatry. I honestly looked at the monitoring now that clinical commissioning groups are doing, and I thought actually, and they really seem to be, you have to do them, they're taken very seriously. The various regulators are on top of that, all of the regulators are on top of that, and I just think that should work. And mental health's included in that, including child and adolescent mental health care. So that's one way that it can be consistent. So it's the monitoring and the regulation. The Care Quality Commission have a massive responsibility to ensure standard. And of course they do, because they rate organisations, but still we've got inequality. I do think that the Royal Foundation won't stand for this. And I think that they will be listened to and rather influential. But the real answer is it has to be a statutory regulation. It has to be people collecting the data and monitoring how things are going, and then it being transparent when it's not. It seems to me that the transparency is getting a bit better, and I think that's I think the credit can be given there to Mind and Rethink and other organisations that are testing the system to say it isn't good enough just to say that there's variation. How do we know that? Let's have a look at the figures. And we're starting to see that publicly. So this is a public report from the Royal College of Psychiatry. So we don't pay attention to this, and we've got something terribly wrong. But it is challenging, and I'm not fully confident that it's going to work in the short term. Yeah, and it's sort of, yeah, I agree. I'm a mental health nurse. But I remember starting my first director's post. I was very young, just 30. And I had child and adolescent mental health in my portfolio, along with other forensic services. And I looked at my budget. I wasn't a big finance person then. I've learnt that over the years. But I could see, by a long way, we were investing markedly less in child and adolescent mental health than anything else. And most was in the forensic services. It was a small group of people. And we had it all wrong. So it does take, you know, and again, if you've been around the system a little while, it does take a long while to completely reverse things, doesn't it? I believe that we are doing that now, and that child and adolescent mental health is getting its time. If we don't get the answers now, we don't make progress now, we're not going to for a long, long time. People like Mind and others say that we now have the opportunity to get mental health resolved best it can over the next 2 years, because the scene is set. Politicians think it should happen. There is a little bit of money around, and that is right. So over the next 2 years, I think we've got our opportunity. Bob, did you have a question? Did I see your hand go up?
No, I was just preparing 5 minutes. It's obviously a very complex area with
Yeah. I mean, I think we would go down to Birmingham South Clinical Commissioning Group, and there are plenty of others. That's where to start. Now, I will know soon, week 2 in my new job, because of the network, I will know where there is very, very good services. Unfortunately, I know more about where the services aren't very good now, because you can read the regulators' reports. But you know, Birmingham South's not too far from you, and I didn't. The first slide, you had the 2 clinical commissioning groups that are supporting this day, and you can get on the Royal College of Psychiatry and find out where they are. So I think where they've got some good investment, that would be a good start. You know, if you've got a particular interest in an area, it's always good to get on the Care Quality Commission site and have a look at how that's been rated in that particular area that you might be looking at. It used to be, Councillor, a few years ago, I remember the Health Service being very good at sharing good practice and sharing good examples. There was a whole organisation called the National Institute of Mental Health, which was a responsibility, multi-million-pound organisation that was responsible for sharing good practice and identifying where things are going well. That doesn't exist. It's a bit of a problem at the moment because we pare down public spending so much. We're not good anymore at sharing good practice and good examples. So it's only a part answer to your question because we've actually taken our eye off the ball on that one a little bit. I think we've got time for one more question, yeah.
I suppose the dilemmas we have with the recruit is how you can move forward with those 18 plus young people who don't fit the criteria for adult mental health services and yet whose vulnerability in terms of their emotional well-being and mental health issues continue to be a barrier to them heeding appropriate advice. How do we move forward in supporting those young people with a mental health provision?
Yeah, it's a transition period, isn't it? Yeah. Did you say from 18 or 16 to 18? From 18.
We work with the mental health policy 1 or 25, so
Well, I mean, the real answer to that is there is no excuse for excluding any particular people during a transition period. So we look to local partnerships to stamp that out, stop excluding people in a period. It's quite often 16 to 25, you know, that people can get lost because of the transition. So I think the first thing is accept that there is a transition problem. There is a large group of charity trusts and foundations that set up a child-to-adult transition group a few years ago. Barra Cadbury Trust run it, and it's focusing around solutions for this issue of mental health children going from the transition to adults. And their view is that you know, their strategic view is just stamp it out, don't let it happen. And I think at this stage, because we're devolving everything. You know, it isn't going to be one government body that will say, stop doing that, just won't work. I think it's local partners to agree that it is inexcusable, you can't do that, and you have to have your services, including that transition point, whether that's more on the adult side or more on the child side, or however that might be, but just sort it out at local level. And I hope you can do that in your area. Okay.